Okay, call the meeting to order. Our pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the roll call?
I did.
Okay. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Anybody up there have a hand? There's no public online. Okay. Passing over public comments because there weren't any. I would, well, before I welcome the new members, I'd like to use the prerogative of the chair. Two members of the audience, Rick Swan, Tom Stevenson. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for your service to the community and your the way you conducted yourself for the past. This board has been very occasionally partisan, but most of the votes, I was looking over the records, they were like 95% either unanimous or nonpartisan. And Tom and Rick had a part of that. So I would like to thank them for their the way they conducted themselves and made the meetings flow smoothly, except for Tom's asking questions all the time. Okay, I'd like to, and would you, either one of you like to say anything before we move on? You can ask a question.
I came tonight just to welcome the new members and to, under public comment, if I need to remind Carl of anything, I'll have that opportunity, but nothing right now.
The same welcome to the new members and it's been a pleasure to work with both Bruce and John. I really enjoyed over the years and thank you again for your continued education.
Okay, now I'd like to move on to the welcome of new members. And I would like to turn it over to each one of them to introduce themselves and to give us just a quick minute about yourself.
My name is George Shank. I've lived in Old Saybrook for 20 some years, I forget, and I just finished serving 6 years on the Board of Education, and I am honored to be elected to the Board of Finance.
And I'm Megan Brady. I've lived in Old Saybrook since 2005. Raised both my kids here. They went through the school system up until this past June, graduated. And this would be my first board commission for Old Saybrook, with the exception of the ad hoc lights committee I was involved in. Thank you.
Okay, our next order of business is the election of officers. Okay. Do I have a nomination?
I would like to nominate Mr. Bruce Carlson to be chairman of the Board of Finance.
Do I have a second?
I'd like to second
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, move on to the election of the vice chairman. Do I have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate George Chang to be vice chair of the Board of Finance.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Both motions have carried. And Bruce, I left the scepter and orb and crown at home, so you might pick it up sometime this week. But other than that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the vote of the full board on this, and I look forward to the next couple of years moving things forward. Two quick things. One is I'd really like to thank you, Paul, your service as the chair over the last many months. It's not quite been 2 years, but many months has been I think, even-handed, and, I appreciate that, because I know I've brought up a number of different things, and you've given me the opportunity to do that. I very much, like that. And I will try to do the same thing in the role as chair. And I'd also like to, congratulate Eric Salt on, his election as well, so that, he's part of, ready to move forward. With that, I'll take a, motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, modifications, changes that people would like to make? Hearing none, let's take it to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
On to the treasurer's report. Madam Treasurer?
Okay. Oh, welcome to everybody. I am not there. I am in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So I'm going to have kind of a quick little treasurer's report this evening. So welcome to the new members. I look forward to meeting you in December in person. So we'll start with our executive summary. So as of October 1st, we're reporting on October's money. Fiscal year to date, the town has received revenue of $29,260,455, or 58.2% of the total amount of $50,276,744 budgeted for fiscal year 24. When comparing our performance to last fiscal year, we are 0.6% ahead of this time last year. Next, we move to the authorized investment section of our monthly treasurer's report. As of the end of October, the town had $31.5 million in its bank accounts. And the investment committee, for the new board members, the investment committee consists of myself, First Selectman Carl Fortuna, and Leanne Palladino. So the investment committee transferred $5 million in September from the in October from the STIF account into Webster for town payables and payroll. The investment committee is always watching our interest rates to make sure our money is making the most it can at any given point in time. And so in the last month, the STIF rate has been moving around just slightly. As you can see, we earned 5.43%, and today it is currently at 5.44. So it's really kind of staying the same lately. And Webster we have a great deal with Webster Bank where they give us the STIF rate at a month's arrears. So we got 5.39% last month. So we're getting great interest on all our money, as you can see in that chart in the middle there. Okay, and then we will move down to the pension plan. At the end of October, we received our report from Morgan Stanley, the town's investment manager, about the performance of the two pension plans, the town and the fire department. The town pension plan is down minus 4.6% fiscal year to date versus its benchmark of minus 4.8%. Over the 3-year horizon, the town plan has returned 2.57% versus its benchmark of 3.29%. The fire department pension plan is down minus 4.49% fiscal year to date and has returned 2.57% over the 3-year horizon versus its benchmark of 3.29%. Our pension board meets the last Thursday of every month at 8:30, and we welcome anyone who would like to attend. You could come either by Zoom or in person. We have a great board of volunteered appointees who Carl has appointed to our board, and we are always reviewing our positions, where we are, and what great people we are blessed to have on our pension board. Does anybody have any questions at this point yet?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Oh, hi, Carl.
You can hear me
Yeah.
okay? All right. I'll save some other comments for later, but I don't know if the members of the board might look, and by the way, if anybody has any suggestions on how to keep me from, I don't know if on the screen it appears that I'm going light and then dark and then light and dark.
No, you're okay.
It looks like it to me in what I'm looking at. And I'm not a technical genius on this stuff. So, but the fire department and the town pension, you might think that they all be in the same investments and that they would all have the exact same return. And they don't, because the fire department is a smaller book of business, and the multitude of investments we have sometimes have a minimum amount of investable assets that they require, so that the fire department assets sometimes find a similar investment, but not the same investment as the town pension. But overall, they track pretty closely, but they're not identical. Leanne, I don't know if you want to expound on that at all, but if that sums it up, it's something that I've thought about for a few months of chiming in and saying, but I just want the board to understand that.
That sums it up.
There you go.
Correct, Carl.
All right,
Good job.
continue, Madam Treasurer.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. Thank you very much, Carl. So overall, the treasurer's responsibility is to oversee all the monies belonging to the town. So as of October 31, total cash balances were 31.5 million. Total pension balances were 26.2 million, for total assets under management of 57.7 million. So then we're going to move to the page 2 of the treasurer's report, which show the revenues broken out into more detail. So tax revenues in October were $135,967 for the month, bringing the fiscal year-to-date total of $27,833,702, or 57.8% of the amount budgeted for fiscal year 24. We received, in the middle section, the first quarter of our ECS state money of $32,000. You'll see in the middle section of the graph there. And we also received $140,000 from OPM for a state shared revenue grant. Okay. Then we'll go to the bigger section, the bottom graph. The interest income for the month was $105,062, bringing our total in 4 months of the fiscal year to $451,000, or 75% of the amount budgeted. In terms of local revenues, the town collected $496,948 in local revenues, or 58.2% of our fiscal year 24 budget, with building permits still holding very strong, refuse collection doing very well, and recording fees were holding at 46% of the budget in a difficult market with rising interest rates. I thought that did very well. And that's all I had to report. Did anybody have any questions?
I have one question. Can we list the revenue, what I'll refer to as the NIP revenue, as state revenue, or does that come in as other revenue?
That comes in off budget. It's not on, these are general fund
Right.
revenues. So that comes in and we have a separate fund for the NIPS revenues.
Okay. Did we just recently get a new amount?
I think that we did, but I don't recall exactly how much it is, but they come in periodically, and we have a
It's every
schedule
6
that goes out to, like, several years. Oh, no, sorry, that's the
Mr.
opioid.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, the question was how much do we get?
No, I thought we may have gotten one I checked this recently on it. I was wondering how much that was if we got it, but.
Yeah. The checks have been pretty consistent. They're about 8,000 every 6 months. So, somewhere between 15 and 16,000 a year. We are using that money. The purpose of that money is to
Has to be
use,
used specifically.
is to be used to try to make your transfer station more effective at reducing using recycling. And we're using some of these revenues in conjunction with our waste and recycling task force to encourage food scrap recycling. So we're using some of those funds, and some of those funds are being used to haul away the food scraps. And we're contracting with a company called Blue Earth, and they are out of West Hartford. They also service Essex, some other towns on the shoreline. Obviously, a large part of their business is in the central part of the state, but we're also using some of those funds to assist with the monthly payments to Blue Earth composting.
Any other questions for the treasurer? George?
I'm sorry, I actually don't know your name, but.
I'm Barbara.
Barbara, hi, I apologize, but thank you very much for this very nice report. It's the first time I've seen it, and I appreciate this. And so, just some very basic questions. And so, I presume that the fiscal year starts in July 1st? July
Yes.
1st. And so, thank you. And so your year to date then, about 4 months worth, and so we're in about 1/3 of the fiscal year. Is that
Correct.
something like that? And so, if I'm looking at the revenues coming in, just for example, right? So your year-to-date receipt, we're budgeted 1.6 million. We've already collected 1.07 million, or 67%. I mean, that's a pretty nice return on just 4 months. But I presume that's because all the summer income coming in has already been received. Certainly I like seeing, where we're getting more than what we anticipated, like Harvey's Beach, right? We've got about 5%. But are there anything that we are projecting to be under what we project at this point coming in? I guess the second question is, do we encumber any funds coming in towards the end of the year in terms of known expenses and so on?
I think that question might be better answered by Leanne.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
That's all right.
So, so as you pointed out, we've received so far 1,068,000 in receipts, and almost half of that is interest income. And during the budget season, the board made a very deliberate determination to only budget $600,000 in interest income, because we just simply didn't know what direction interest rates were going to go in. Historically, we had interest income budgeted at $75,000, and we are blessed with very great interest rate environment. So that is the primary driver of why we are over. In terms of what might fall under, at this point, taking a look at the numbers, I think that we're either pretty well on target or going to be over in some of these categories. There's nothing here that is concerning at this point, with only 4 months under our belt, that we are not going to reach our budgeted amount by the end of the fiscal year. And did you have a specific question?
Well, no, I appreciate that. So just following up on the interest, so we're going to be way over there.
Yes, we are.
Okay, that's
We're
great.
over.
And so
That's surplus in
that's
terms of.
fantastic. And I'm just wondering whether do you guys encumber funds, or do you guys basically earmark funds for expenses coming down?
Yes. So the treasurer gives the report on the revenues, and then when I come up, I'm going to give the report on the expense. No, not at all. And we do encumber funds all year long. They are encumbered.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
All right. Are you guys okay if I log off for the evening? Will you be okay?
Enjoy the pleasures of Hilton Head.
Hilton Head, yes. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Fine.
Leanne?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be referring to the written report for the finance director. As you will see, this is the expenditure side of the equation here. And we budgeted $50,276,744, which is the same that we budgeted for our revenues. So we budget equal amounts. We do not budget a surplus. And year to date, we've spent a total of 18.6 million, or 37% of our budget. We're on par. We've actually spent a little bit less than we did at this point last year at 38%. We're doing well in that category. Typically, I report on just the changes that have occurred since last month, but I'm just going to make a couple extra comments given our new board members. So this report tracks all of the budget as well as all of the additional appropriations that have been made by this Board of Finance since the beginning of the fiscal year, starting in July 1st. And we've had an ARPA appropriation of $50,000 for the CAPE. And we've also had $25,000 of capital non-recurring for time and attendance system. We have made an appropriation for the purchase of radios for the fire department. And those are going to be coming up on the agenda at the annual town meeting this Monday. And so after the Board of Finance, it will hopefully receive final approval, and then those monies will be dispersed. We keep tabs on all of those things. On page 2 of the report, our fiscal year-to-date performance in terms of expenditures, a third of the year has passed by. And if we just were to take our budget and simply divide the 50 million by 12 months, every month and a third of the year has passed, we should have spent by that metrics $6 million. But we actually spent $7.1 million. The way things work is that at the beginning of the fiscal year, we make a lot of one-time first payments. We pay our pension plan, we make transfers of capital and things like that. So by the time we get to the end of the year, those things will equalize, but there are several types of upfront costs. The other thing that we look at is cash flow, because to one of the questions that came about already, we focus mainly on the general fund, but we have over 100 funds. And those funds are grouped by our auditors into 4 main categories: general fund, capital fund, reserve funds, and non-major funds. So I like to give a executive level bird's eye view of how the cash flows are moving in some of those groups of funds. So our general fund for the month of October was down 2.7 million. We spend about $3.44 million on average in expenditures per month at the town. And against the 2.7 we spent for this particular month, we spent $3.5 million in expenditures, and we received about $600,000 in receipts that makes up that money. Our capital funds are all of the projects that we have going on, and that category was down about 180,000. There we did some paving in Cornfield Point. We've been spending a lot of money on grants for a lot of the projects that have been going on around town, including some park and rec expenditures and things like that. So that accounts for the 180,000. We have several reserve funds, and I'll show you, if you look quickly down below, the municipal reserve fund, catastrophic illness, reval, all of those are considered reserve funds. We put money away every single year to save up for events. We are going to be in the midst of a reval next year, so the reserve funds are down about 30,000. That's because we're starting to plan for our reval, and we've been paying our vision, the vendor Vision, who's going to help us with reval. So that accounts for the reduction in those cash flows. And then all of the other funds are considered non-major funds. That's the bulk of the category, but they're typically pretty small but numerous. They total $4 million, and they are down $240,000 for the month of October. Out of that fund, we pay our monthly pension fund payroll. So it was about 165,000. We also have all of our youth and family budget is considered off budget. That was about 58,000. So that all of those cash flows for the month of October down $3.2 million. And then, for the last part of this report, we, talk about the Board of Finance's long-term strategies, of which we have three. We have capital, our debt service, as well as our pension funds. In terms, these capital outlays that are listed here are the ones that, this board, the approved budget for fiscal year 24, the funds that we transferred into our reserve accounts and the ones that we have designated for our projects. I'm not going to go through all of these this month, unless you have any specific questions, but I have a couple of things to point out. Number one is in the capital non-recurring account, the balance is now $2.2 million. That is inclusive of the $1.2 million of surplus that we transferred to capital non-recurring. So we have a really great, solid reserve balance for future use. On page 3, our overall funds total $4,648,000, and of that, $3.7 million is the combination of the reserve funds that we have at the town. So we have ample capital and reserves, certainly at this point and going forward. Under capital expenditures, some of our departments have ongoing capital needs. So we have those in their individual budgets, and the fire department has not spent any of their $60,000 yet. The police department has an $89,000 payment for the lease of their vehicles, and that has been paid so far this year. Under highway and streets, that $475,000 is the budget for paving, and we've had a successful paving season. We've already spent most of it. Sometimes we don't spend because of the the weather. And so right now we've made great progress in spending all of the capital for fiscal year 2024. We spent 550 of the 660. Pension plan, Barbara talked about the performance of our pension plan. From a budget perspective, I'm very pleased that this Board of Finance over the last couple of years has changed their funding policy to fully fund the pension plan. So that was done at the beginning of the fiscal year. I'm probably not going to talk about that for the rest of the fiscal year, but we did pay our full obligations for both the town and the fire department. And we also have a pension reserve of $312,000 should we need to use that for any reason in the future. And informationally, the last long-term strategy is our debt service. We have $20.3 million in outstanding debt, and our debt service for this fiscal year is $3,071,000. So we paid most of that already. We'll have a couple more payments in January and February, and then that will be all taken care of. On the next page, we have each of our department budgets listed, and in the year-to-date expenses, it does include encumbrances that we have either paid for. The period expense is actual money that has gone out for that period, and then year-to-date expenses is actual funds as well. So there is not anything unusual included here. All of the funds are operating as expected, nothing unusual, and we are on target for the expenditure side of the town general fund. A couple more little things, but I'll stop at this point.
You want to stop? Okay.
Any
Are there any
questions?
questions? Brad?
On outstanding debt service,
Yeah.
20 million. Can we get a breakdown of that?
But meaning like by school, town,
Whatever it is, yeah.
yes. Let's see if I have that at my fingertips here. The town is 8.7 million. The WPCA septic system is 7.2, and the school is 4.3.
What was the WPCA?
7.2, call it 7.3.
The other question I have is, we had the funds that were turned down for the fire marshal's car,
Yep,
where are those sitting now?
I put them back into capital non-recurring.
Other questions, Fred?
Thank you, thank you.
Anybody else have questions for the finance director?
I have two more quick things. One, I just want to mention that, the auditors have completed their exam. Everything went smoothly. I haven't heard anything yet anyway, I should say. And they will be in January, late January or early February, depending on what meeting, they can make it to give the Board of Finance their final report. And then the second piece of business, just wanted to go over the calendar for the budget for this upcoming fiscal year 25. So that we can set our schedule for special meetings, and that is in front of you. Does anybody want me to talk about it, or I think it's pretty self-explanatory? Just for the new members, all I would say to introduce this is that we have historically had joint Board of Selectmen and joint Board of Finance meetings, so that everybody can hear what's going on, so that by the time you do receive the budget in March, and you have had time to hear all of the budgets and all of the presentations and to ask questions throughout the whole process. And then it makes it a little bit more efficient when you ultimately do get a chance to do your portion of the budget review. We do have a capital planning meeting that where we request the chair to appoint two Board of Finance members to be on that committee at some point soon. And then leading up to and including the referendum for ultimately for the final budget.
Fred?
Can we put a limit on time for some of these departments, for all of them?
Well,
Or,
what do you mean by a
discussion?
limit on time?
well, some of these presentations were
Too long?
2 hours.
Yeah.
I think
It's a feedback off of the, keeps sounding like it's coming, but it's a feedback off.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, entertain that.
Make a request for that to happen. I'm sure you'll be happy to talk.
I'd be happy to
talk
do
to
that.
your
Yes.
department heads for that purpose.
The other request I have is I'd like to see every department come here, the major ones,
Mhm.
to do their presentation, not,
Not online.
I think it, to come in here and ask for a couple $1 million, it warrants them to come here once to.
Person and does the board have does that board have a definition of short? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour?
Why don't we say that from a presentation standpoint, no more than 20 minutes,
Okay,
and then that gives us 10 minutes to ask questions.
thank you, Renee. Okay, perfect.
I think that's a little short. I think some of those presentations go on for well over an hour.
Well, why don't we offer that as a guideline to get people thinking about short, and then we'll have the flexibility if we want to stretch the time.
We do a penalty if they run over.
Well, why don't, I'll tell you what, Leanne, check it out with the department heads.
Yeah.
See what you have in the way of feedback from that. We'll get together in a couple weeks, and if there's a reason why we need to think more about it, we will.
Okay, I will do that.
George?
Just a comment on the length of meetings, and so from my perspective, for what would be helpful to me, and I don't know whether this actually is a practice, but if the documents or the presentations are all online, I can receive it ahead of time, and I do my homework. There's really no need for the presenter to go through the entire slide deck again, because I have done my homework, and so then the meeting can be much more efficient. On the slide deck that I cannot understand, so that's my perspective. That may be a way to make more efficient meetings.
And you'll find that Leanne offers, with her, she's doing the work up through, getting the meeting started. So we'll end up with a lot of information just the numbers information, not so much the qualitative information, that the department head might want to offer, but we'll have definitely the quantitative information for each of the budgets.
And the presentations will be sent to you before.
Thank you.
When Sarah sent it beforehand.
So actually, we could, probably need ample time to ask questions. I'm not sure we need to be limited on that.
No, I wasn't suggesting we would do it. I just kind of giving us a sense of how, from Leanne's standpoint, about how to schedule department heads
Okay.
through.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions people have? Right, hearing none. Thank you, Leanne.
Yep, again, I apologize. I just want to acknowledge my first meeting here. Again, excellent report. I appreciate all the time and effort you put into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will give folks 2 weeks to think about who would like to volunteer to be on the capital budget meeting. But I figured you might be, but there may be somebody else as well, so we will see. All right, we will now move on to discussion of the recommendations from the ARPA committee. And Carl, how do you want to do this? Do you want to be the presenter? You want me as the chair of ARPA to be the presenter? Which way do you want to go? You're muted.
Larry has to unmute him.
Larry?
Here we
There
go.
we go.
Let me just give an overall 30,000 foot view, and then I'll let you, Bruce, as chairman of ARPA, and Brad Thorpe, who's also a member of the ARPA committee. We've received, just for George and Megan's edification, we received about $3 million in ARPA funds. Whenever it was 21, 22, I think it was 22. We have until the end of 2024 to allocate those funds and the end of 2026 to spend the funds. What we've done pretty much from the get-go is whatever funds come out of the ARPA committee go through the normal appropriation process. It's a much more transparent process for both the public and for the federal government if they were ever to audit us. Other towns have run up against some issues with regard to their ARPA funds, but I think if we take it through the normal appropriation process of Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, town meeting, there's very little to quibble about in terms of process. And that recommendation for the formal appropriation process comes from I think it's a 7-person committee. It's a good, it's a good representation of our community. And there's been really good outreach on all the ARPA funding that is available. So we've in the past done this with approximately, I want to say, $1.8 million worth of appropriations. Right now we have between $1 and $1.2 million left. The ARPA committee met recently and came up with several more appropriations. We're also looking at some larger projects for the remainder of 2023 and 2024. But these projects find themselves before you this evening. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to both the chair of ARPA and the chair of the Board of Finance to present the recommendations.
Thank you. Any questions of Carl? So let me, let's take them one at a time. And the first one is the Old Saybrook ambulance. And sir, are you representing the Old Saybrook ambulance, or is there anybody here? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I didn't, just in case there wasn't, be able to answer questions should we have them. This, as Carl said, the process is that the ARPA committee receives the application, we review the application. In almost every case, representatives of whoever the applying institution is there to ask the question. In this particular case, this was a request for paving because the apron that leads into the garage was sinking, and as a result of that, the ambulance was becoming damaged as it was going in and out of the product. And so it is town-owned property, and if you remember, one of the purposes of the ARPA money is for town-related expenses. So it met that purpose very clearly, and the ARPA committee recommended it to the Board of Selectmen, and that's why it's in front of us tonight. Any questions on this? Okay, why don't we vote on this and then we will go to the next. So
Can you motion on that?
I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion for that. One Saybrook ambulance, 17,294.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next one is the $25,000 for, it's a matching grant. The actual grant is about $100,000. And they needed this $25,000 match in order to be able to finalize the grant application. And I believe that with the $25,000, they actually have this grant. It's interesting from the perspective of coastal resilience in town, because this is instead of trying to throw in rocks and, this is actually creating a living shoreline as a model. We had a similar model in Fenwick a couple of years ago. I think these folks are picking up on that. So this is a creative way to hopefully maybe pilot some ideas that we could use as a town moving forward in our coastal resilience. Brad, do you have anything more to offer on that?
So,
Any questions? Okay, take a motion.
motion to approve 25,000
Is there a second?
from the town's ARPA funds for the purpose of providing matching funds for design and permitting of ecological restoration of Black Back River, further to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. The last one is the Little League. Those people who have been on the board may remember we had a number of different not-for-profits come in earlier as part of the first round. There was some early discussion with the Little League. They went back to look at what their needs were. We, the ARP committee, were pretty clear about, one of the pillars that the ARPA committee is trying to support and fund moving forward is how do we get more kids outside? How do we get more outside activity? And so we asked the Little League, rather than necessarily looking backwards, look forwards and say, in order to be able to expand your operations, in order to be able to provide more opportunity for the youth of Old Saybrook to be outside and playing, what do you need? They came back to us with a significant list. It was about $45,000 total. What in discussions with the head of the Little League, the decision was that somewhere in this range of 15,000 would be able to definitely kickstart a number of the different ideas that they had. And so the ARPA committee voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen $15,000 appropriation to enhance our Little League program in town.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to appropriate 15,000 from the town's ARPA funds for the purpose of providing revenue reimbursement to the Old Saybrook Little League.
Is there a second?
Further to move this appropriation of town meeting.
I'll figure it out. So somewhere down the line, I'll figure out the keys. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Eric,
Question. Can I vote on this since I sit on the board of Little League? Or should I abstain?
you should probably understand. So with that, all those please say in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention. Thank you for letting us know.
Sure. So I just had some general questions and procedural questions. So for the ARPA, My understanding is that the funding of the ARPA, because it's federal money, needs to be very closely monitored in the sense that it actually meets the federal guidelines for funding. And all three proposals are very worthwhile. I mean, the ambulance one is very clear. The shoreline one, again, great benefit, but we just want to make sure that we're dotting i's and crossing the t's, making sure that these are actually matching that.
Great question. When the Treasury Department put out its regulations, it identified, it was to assist businesses and not-for-profits and individuals to some extent that had an impact by COVID. But they also specifically said, and also these other categories. And so both the town and the shoreline fall into that, coastal resiliency being one of those categories. So that we follow those guidelines very closely. Leanne, make sure that we follow those guidelines very closely, because you're absolutely right. Is it a quarterly monitor? What is the amount of money?
So far it's yearly. We have to report at the end of April, because we actually got a small amount. Some of us have to report quarterly if they're larger cities or states. But they have a pretty intensive application that goes through every single one of the parameters that's required for them to meet, and therefore we have the documentation, and we use that documentation and as well as keeping track of all of the other flows of funds, and we report on that when required, when our time is due.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and just a procedural question. And so, and I'm the last person to actually should be commenting on this because I'm not that sure, but in the past, my understanding, the practice has been that a motion is made and then the question happens after the motion is made. Otherwise, we don't question a particular item unless a motion is made, because there's no motion on the floor. And so I'm just trying to figure out the procedure here where you're asking for questions before the motion is made. And so if we question after the motion is made or before the second, but after the second and before we vote, I'm just trying to figure out when. I'm hesitant to raise my hand and ask a question before the motion is made, and then after that, we seem to be going through.
We move pretty quickly after that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, unless there is any strong desire otherwise, I think what I would like to do is to have at least some discussion prior to a motion being made. That would then allow for, if whatever the motion that is, written and ready to go before us, if we need to amend it, we could just do it at that point, and just rather than go back and do it again. So as I run the meeting, and like I say, unless there's a problem, we'll probably have a discussion before the motion's made.
With me. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next we're on to capital non-recurring appropriation for Main Street Connection Park. And Carl, you're getting darker and darker, but we'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You know what? I'm just gonna. It might be better to do that because it's just weird to look at. From my perspective, it is. So George, good questions on the use of the ARPA funds. Coastal resiliency and infrastructure, town and city infrastructure were specifically called out by the Treasury as allowable uses. And if you were to look at all the uses of the ARPA funds, you'd see that town infrastructure was also granted some other money to do some other projects. The Ambulance Association falls under both a nonprofit as well as the town owning the land and therefore town infrastructure. All right, so let me just click over here. Okay, so Main Street Connection Park, which is the park where the parking lot across from the Kate and the pickleball courts are, that was originally designed in two separate phases. Phase one was exactly what was built, and that was built with the assistance of a small town economic assistance program grant in the amount of $500,000. And as you all know, there was an old police station there. We built the new police station. We were able to obviously redevelop and put something really great on Main Street. And the phase two is behind the pickleball courts. And that is about 1.2, 1.3 acres that go from the pickleball courts to there's a fence. The police department has fenced in the rear of their property. If you were to look back there, when we originally bought the property that the police department is currently in, we divided that property so that the police station would have a segment of the property and the town would have a future use of the property because it was such a large piece. And I don't believe, and I don't think the chief even believed that the entire town or the entire piece would be needed for the police department. So we divided the piece. We have about 1.3 acres that has sat basically, for the most part, unused. It's been used a little bit by the department and by the town over the years for storage. And more importantly, it would connect to Lind Street. So if you drive on Lind Street, you'll see the fence of the police department. And we have land that would be basically to the north of that fence. But from there to the St. John driveway, there's additional town-owned land there. So there would be a sidewalk that goes all the way to Lind Street, and it would connect back to Main Street, going through this park, going by the pickleball courts on the north side, and then coming back onto Main Street. So we put this out to bid, as you can see. First of all, I want to say what the bid alternate is. When phase one was originally designed, there was a sidewalk. So there was a sidewalk to the east of the pickleball courts. So on the parking lot side of the pickleball courts. And the reason there was originally a sidewalk designed there is cars come through the parking lot, they can drop people off, and then they can park. And you can walk on the sidewalk, in theory, either to the pickleball courts or to Lind Street. And that was not built. That was on the original design in phase one, but it was not built in phase one for a variety of reasons that we probably don't need to go into here. You can imagine money. Anyway, so we'd like to get it done this time. And the low bid by Martin Laviero the base bid was $584,000. The bid alternate for that sidewalk was $16,000. We have a grant for $500,000. It is not a steep grant. It is, I think they're calling it an urban action grant program through the state DOT. We received the grant and we didn't receive it yet, but we received notice that we will get it. And we're ready to go on this. DOT, in fact, there was some action today on this. DOT had some questions about the low bidder and some of their unit-based pricing that they questioned. And so our town engineer had to talk to the Martin Lavriero, and he then sent an email today to the state of Connecticut explaining the low bid to satisfy the state. The state will now issue an award. They'll issue us actually the permission to award the project to the low bidder. I'm confident that will happen, if not by the end of this week, the end of next week. So to complete this project is approximately $600,000, of which we have $500,000. Earlier in this meeting, you heard Leanne say that the capital non-recurring fund has approximately $2.2 million in it. Just for everyone's edification, that fund was started in my first term with about a $300,000 budget item. And we now have about $2 million in there. I would say that over the years, we've probably spent $2 million on projects all over town. The Youth and Family Services building, for instance, has been completely rebuilt inside and out with capital non-recurring funds. So projects all over town, the library, town hall, everybody's benefited from this fund. So we do need additional funds to have these funds in place as we're about to award the low bid to Martin Laviero. This would be one of their first projects in the spring. They basically stated that to both the town and to our town engineer, and they are ready to go once the frost will break. In addition to that, we've given them permission if they want to do some site work over the course of the winter to go ahead and do that. And that would be ripping up a lot of asphalt in the rear of the Frontier parking lot. I have secured a construction easement from Frontier to allow the construction company to use their driveway because there is very poor access to this rear lot. But we do have a construction easement for the entirety of 2024 so that this work can be done. Frontier's been terrific to work with over the last few years. Yeah, so that's the explanation. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Carl?
How many bids do we get?
It's like three.
Three.
Is that right, Carl? 3 bids?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The question was how many bids, and I said, it looks like 3.
Yeah, there were 3 total bids. Yes, those are the bids. We put them right in front of you.
Eric?
Carl, what's the timeline on the project? Length of the project estimated?
I would say this project is probably, I don't know. I'm sure it's I'm not so sure it's in the bid docs. What they have to do is complete it within a certain period of time. Obviously, they have 6 months to complete it. I would imagine, just based on prior experience, that this is a 3-month job, 3 to maybe. I would imagine that this will be done by the summer. It is mostly site work, constructing a sidewalk, planting some trees, benches, and a bocce court or 2. So I don't think it's overly complicated for this company.
Other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to move $100,000 additional dollars.
$100,365.
Okay, $100,365.
This is from capital, non-recurring.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, may I make one more comment?
Okay.
And it's just, again, more for edification for Megan and George. And I know it's probably, you're hearing a lot tonight, but so anytime we put money into the capital non-recurring account, for instance, whether you'll see it is actually a budget item that we budget $300,000 every year to go into the capital non-recurring account. And then, of course, we put some money from our budget surplus last year into the capital non-recurring account. Anytime money comes out of the capital non-recurring account, because it is undesignated, the funds are there to be used for undesignated future capital projects. Anytime money comes out, it must go through the appropriations process, no matter the amount. It can be $500. It can be 5 million. Well, it can't be 5 million, but it can be $1 million. It must go to Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, town meeting. So these funds still must go to town meeting to be completely approved. Anyway, I just wanted to state that.
Carl, you triggered a question that I had relative to the ARPA appropriations. Seeing how 2 of those appropriations are less than 25,000, will they need to go to town meeting?
No. See there?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing that and going on mute. I'd like to take them to town meeting because that's been our policy with regard to any and all ARPA appropriations. I just think it's cleaner.
Right, yeah, more transparent. Okay. Oh, George, sorry.
Sorry. This is a comment strictly related to this. Cara, if you turn the lights off behind you, you won't go dark.
Um,
You'll be sitting in the dark, but your face would not be in the dark. The lights by this, but those
Okay.
are lights.
I'm happy to try it, but you're right. I will be completely in the dark. I don't know. You won't be able to see me, will you?
What the screen will light you up. The problem is that the camera is trying to adjust.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If I'm in the dark, you won't be able to see my face, will you?
Your screen is quite bright.
Do you have an overhead light in the room?
No, I'm at an Airbnb in Louisiana. I'm away for the holiday, so no, there's only the lamps. Anyway, in fact,
We're enjoying your disembodied voice, so that's fine.
actually, take a break. 1 second. Let me try.
All right.
I don't think you guys are ready for this. There we go.
Much better.
I
Oh,
did.
one lamp off.
There is a. I'll turn that lamp off too. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. You look good.
All right. All right. Sorry about that. There were some lights. There were some lights on the fan.
All right. All right. All right, we are on to item number 12, the discussion concerning the police commission's recommendation to hire PERF to perform study for its proposal. For the purposes of the board tonight, just want to, the way the agenda item is worded is we are open for discussion, but following what I consider to be the Tom Stevenson rule, we will be discussing it tonight, but not voting. Give us a chance to then think about it over the next 2 weeks, and we'll come back in 2 weeks and we will we'll vote on it. So with that, Jerry was good enough to send out to all of us the proposals that had been submitted, and I would just open it up to any board member that has a comment like to make.
I think we've had ample time to look at this, and I feel as though that it would be advantage to vote on this tonight.
I understand that. I believe, though, by virtue of the fact that we did not say that we were going to vote on it tonight, we would be working against freedom of information.
All right.
Is there any other comments people have? Good.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm sorry.
That's right.
To understand item number 12, the way I read this, it looks like the police commission is actually recommending the PERF bid.
Yes, let me, for those who haven't tracked this closely, and we do have some members of the police commission here, and feel free if I either run afoul of what your thinking is, but my understanding is that based on the concerns that were expressed over the summer by the police chief, the police commission asked Carl to please get moving on being able to find out how we can best respond to those concerns, many of which are economic concerns relative to the pension, relative to post-employment, medical, etc. And so Carl then spoke with these 3 companies to ask them to please make a bid, proposal for that type of work. The selectmen reviewed that. They came up with a recommendation, which was CLA. They sent the proposals to the police commission. Police commission reviewed the proposals, and in their wisdom, they decided that they thought that the perfect group was the more appropriate group to do the work.
And Mr. Chair, if I just may add one more thing on that. The Board of Selectmen, I do believe that it is more appropriate for this board to consider the Police Commission's recommendation as given their role, their statutory role with the police department. The Board of Selectmen simply made a recommendation. The Board of Selectmen is willing to adhere to the Police Commission recommendation without objection. In fact, not offended by it at all. I said that to the Police Commission. You know, it's a number, but number, I mean, by in terms of it's $100,000. But I have no doubt that the second recommendation, the CLA recommendation, was probably going to push 50. And you can argue that CLA is more of a generalist consultancy firm and PERF is not. So I think that expertise is something that was appreciated by the Police Commission. I just want to make, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just a few comments. The chief basically put a letter out in the summer, I think it was in July, and he basically said the police department's on fire, our house is on fire, and we need help. And that's probably true because we are authorized for 25 cops, and last I knew there were 17. I know Officer Cruz recently submitted his resignation to go to Middletown. And from what I understand, Middletown is an amazing police force, and they do have some better benefits than the town of Old Saybrook, and probably more opportunity. And that's something the chief has highlighted over the years. So I don't know if he has, the department has 16, or if there's been a few additions since then. I'm sure members of the Police Commission can talk to that. But the chief mentioned our house is on fire and said, hey, we need better pay, we need better health insurance, we need better pension benefits, better post-employment health benefits, and a multitude of requests. And those are, each one of those equates to money. And some money may need to be spent to upgrade either pay or benefits. I'm not going to tip my hand as to what they might be, if any, other than normal negotiations, which we will enter into with the police union probably very soon in the new year, because their contract is up June 30th, 2024. But my reason for recommending to the Police Commission and to the Board of Selectmen that we bring on a consultant is if this town is going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if we are, in terms of pay and benefits, maybe more over the course of 10 years, it could be 7 figures and up. Then I believe we need to know that we are solving the problem. We have a turnover problem. I know there's a shortage of cops in the state of Connecticut and across the country, but we've struggled with turnover for quite some time prior to the shortage. Back in March of 21, the chief presented to the Police Commission a turnover report at their request saying, why does the town have such high turnover? And the chief explained in that book his reasoning for why he felt the town had high turnover. Well, since then, we've lost 13 or 14 cops since March of 21, and we have a 25-person force. So I think it's imperative. I think money is less of an issue than getting the right person on board. And, investing in the department under the chief's leadership is important to figure out why we're losing people. Is it pay? Is it the structure of the department? Is it lack of opportunity? Is it pension health? Is it the town of Old Saybrook? Do they not like working here? I think we need to know. And I think asking our townspeople to invest like I think we might have to, it's only fair that the townspeople have confidence that what we're doing, what we might negotiate, is actually going to benefit the health and the stability of the Old Saybrook Police Department. That is my reasoning. It's as simple as that. There's no other ulterior motives, nothing. And I know the chief has stood up, at least at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and said, if you want me gone, buy me out of my contract. Never said anything like that to the chief, and it has nothing to do with wanting the chief to be gone. It has to do with understanding if the town has an issue, we need to identify that issue, and then we can fix that issue. And that is the purpose of bringing on a consultant. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Leanne,
Yes.
where would the money for this be coming from?
Well, if it's an appropriation from this board, it can come from a variety of places. It can be an outright appropriation. It may come from capital non-recurring, or transferred from someplace else. I think those are the logical places, but most likely I would assume capital non-recurring.
Okay, because it isn't in the budget as a line
It is
item.
not, no.
And with your blessing, I'd like to ask the
Yes.
police commission chairman a question.
I was going to see if the police commission
If he's
chairman
willing
had
to answer.
a comment, so please do.
Reviewing, dropping out the low bidder, which seemed to be quite an outlier. I am a little bit confused. The one in the middle, I can't tell what the total cost is.
That's right.
Okay. Now, it looks like it's contingent upon some second,
There's an estimate of range from, I think, around mid-30s to low 40s for phase one. With the caveat that phase one might involve more work, in which case they'll be back in touch with us and, avoid a surprise before we get a bill. And then there's phase two, which is actually pricing out some of these costs. I think it's hard to say. I think that's why Mr. Fortuna said it. It's probably going to come in around 50, or it might even be more than that. The other proposal is a fixed fee.
yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is phase two as necessary. Is that gonna be a significant number or?
I think it will be necessary.
Okay.
Because phase one is addressing the question, why are people leaving? Phase two is, to the extent that that depends on pensions and benefits, how can they work with us to help us in that aspect?
So to get to the issue that Carl, the first selectman, was talking about, long-term costs and range, we would definitely have to go to a phase two, which at this point does not have a number associated with it.
I think that's right.
Right, that's my reading of it.
So if we went with them, we'd be sort of committing ourselves to an unknown.
I wouldn't say a pig in a poke, but certainly not a definite number.
Thank you.
So is there any other points that you'd like to make sure this board hears?
Sure. I think the police commission was unanimously of the view that the PERF proposal was more fulsome. And it had this distinguishing feature. The CLA proposal read to me like their sweet spot was forensics. A lot of their work has been investigations into malfeasance, that sort of thing. PERF, on the other hand, their sweet spot is evaluating operations and organization of police departments. That is what they do. That, I think, is exactly what we need.
I just want to remind you, you came to us once before and asked for 50,000. That doesn't seem to be enough.
That's right, that's right, that was a couple of years ago, that was.
Inflation, okay.
And I guess I have one question, which is there, we have the proposals. is there flexibility, in, some of the, what I'll consider to be minor aspects, but I think could be important relative to the study. For instance, in the PERF proposal, they talked about, going 3 years back, talking to, patrolmen who had left. Would there be a way to suggest maybe that's 5 years back instead of 3 years back? Something like that. If you, has anybody had a conversation with them along those lines?
I have not had a conversation along those lines, but I can't imagine that that would be unwelcome. I think their issue was, how far back do you go? How do you find people after the passage of time?
Right.
And in any event, they're not gonna have any power to compel people
Right.
to come talk, so it's gonna be who's willing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments people have? Megan?
I just have a comment. In a past life, I worked down in DC for a public safety consulting firm, and we had partnered with PERF on many different client needs. And as both Carl in the police commission has mentioned, that they are specialists, and they're being a nonprofit. They are very well respected, in the industry and within police departments.
Great, thank you.
And this was 18, 20 years ago, but as far as I can tell, they've continued that.
According to their
reputation.
proposal, they're still doing it, so that's good. Eric, did you have a comment?
I just have a question. The three, who received the three, who was the initial receiver of these, Carl? Was it you?
Yes, it was. And let me explain how we got there. Okay. The proposal from the professors, the $13,000 proposal, actually was an organization that Jessica Callie, I think she's in the room.
Yeah.
Jessica Callie emailed that around to the police commission sometime over the summer, I think. And so I saved it. I read it and I saved it. And after the chief's letter, I contacted the professor for a bit. CLA is a company we're currently working with. So I asked the gentleman who is working on the town stuff, the town organizational examination. We asked him, hey, is there anyone in your firm who might be able to do this? Or I said, can you recommend a firm to do it? And I ended up getting a proposal out of CLA through another branch, not the gentleman who we're working with on the town hall review. And the third organization, PERF, I was having a discussion because I had, the town is also looking at other towns' pensions. And Becky, we are asking our actuary to price out some increases in pension benefits. And part of that involves getting other towns' valuations to see what other towns are doing with their police pensions. So I was tasked with getting I think there's about 7 towns that I contacted. Becky Seelman from Milliman thought I might have better access and better inroads to get those reports. So I contacted all 7 towns. One of them was Clinton. And I had emailed Carl Kilduff, the town manager of Clinton. And prior to getting Clinton's valuation, I saw Carl at a CCM meeting. And I said, hey, Carl, I just sent you a request the other day. And he said, what are you looking to do? And I said, well, we might be looking to hire a consultant, but we're also looking at benefits. And he said, if you're looking to hire a consultant, you should definitely hire PERF, P-E-R-F. I had never heard of them. So I went back and I Googled them, and that's how I got them. So as it turns out, Megan also has some experience with them, and they're obviously highly respected in the industry. So I thought that was actually a pretty good, 3 selections for consultants. And the town certainly has the right in its bidding ordinance to choose professional services without bid when it comes to this type of thing.
And as part of this, will and the perf proposal, it talks in task 2 about recruitment, retention, and staffing levels. Is part of this going to be them looking at, yes, we have 16 officers now, but we're budgeted for 25? Are they gonna be looking at that 25 number and saying that's the right number, it's the wrong number, you need less, you need more? Is that part of this? Because that's been discussed for a long time.
It has been discussed for a long time. That is certainly, it looks like it's in there. I don't think it's their focus of this. Look, I did solicit 3 bids. As per the town ordinance, I solicited 3 bids. I was very clear that I wanted to have them come in and look at, do police officers like working in this town? And if they're leaving this town for other municipal agencies or other agencies in general, whether it's the state, why are they leaving? And is it pay and benefits? And so that was certainly the focus, and that's what I asked all 3 consultants to focus on. Honestly, I would probably ask them to spend a lot more time going back 5 more years in terms of interviewing police officers than I would in asking them to determine if 25 is the right number. I know what municipal police departments along the shoreline staff, and I feel very comfortable that 25 is a good number for this town. That's my personal opinion, and I would probably ask them to spend, if they were going to look at that, ask them to spend less time doing that.
Thank you.
But that would be
All
a
right,
conversation.
I just have one
Go ahead,
question.
John.
And I'll ask the police commission. Did you ask them if they would be looking at the vetting process that we currently use right now?
They didn't, Josh, I don't think anyone on the police commission had any contact with PERF. So the attraction and retention is one of the areas of the focus. And when you're looking at attracting police officers, I would imagine that also includes hiring laterals and also the vetting process for putting kids into the young police officers into the academy, or whether you're hiring a lateral. So that is part of attraction, getting people here as and trying to retain them.
Your question?
Okay, well, what do I know?
All right, good enough. Any other questions people have? All right, with that, we will move on from this discussion. We will plan to have a vote at our next meeting. Jerry, if you can make sure that's on the agenda, that'd be great. And Carl, we are moving to the selectmen's report.
And okay, with this, I'm going to be brief because I have other things to get to tonight. We're with Ashley's family down here. So I just want to also echo what the former chairman, Paul Carver. Paul, thank you for your service as chairman. I did want to say that you were an excellent chairman. Paul, many of you may not know, Paul has extensive experience in New Britain with the Board of Education, and that's why he was so well schooled in a committee and being part of a committee and being chairman. So thank you, Paul. And also, I would also like to extend my thanks to Tom Stevenson and Rick Swan, both longtime old Saybrook people who just give their heart and soul to the town, not only on boards and commissions, but doing other things. So I want to thank both of them for their service to the Board of Commission. I also would like to welcome George Tang and Megan Brady. I respect the heck out of both these people. George has been obviously a longtime volunteer for the town and a huge benefit to the Board of Education. And I briefly worked with Megan on the Lights Committee, and that's where I got to know Megan a little bit, and it was truly my pleasure to get to know Megan. So welcome to George and Megan. And I really, the old board was wonderful to work with, and I look forward to working with the new board. I'm sure Leanne does too. So with that, I am going to ask the chair's permission to move on and exit the meeting and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
You have one as well? And,
Yeah, unless there's any questions, I'm happy to take any questions at this point too.
any quick questions? All right.
Way over dinner.
Have a great Thanksgiving, Carl. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is our calendar for 2024. Jerry has laid them out for us. I haven't looked to see whether there's any conflicting dates with holidays or whatever, but why, I guess the only question I have is, I know 2 years ago, when we were looking at the calendar, there was a change in the time to 6:30. Is everybody still comfortable with 6:30 as our meeting time?
Yes.
And any changes or comments that people have about the dates?
We usually have a Saturday meeting in January, is that on here?
That's
That's
not on
the-
here, because Leanne was.
That was Leanne's calendar.
It's
that
on
you
the
looked
fiscal,
at.
the fiscal calendar for the
Pay
budget,
attention.
Those are special.
January
Pay
27th.
attention.
Through calendar.
I know.
There's two.
One was the selectmen's calendar,
So with that,
and this is yours.
I will make a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
No more.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Now we're moving on to liaison. What's the name of the liaison? Oh, let me, for George and Megan's purposes. Board of Finance often has people who have taken it upon themselves, representing the Board of Finance, to be liaison with other key departments in town. I believe Brad and Eric were working with Board of Ed. Paul had Police Commission. Tom, who's no longer here, Tom and Rick were Department of Public Works. And so it's a matter of your interest, if you want to dig a little deeper into the work of some of the departments. This liaison opportunity gives you that. And then what we do as part of our agenda is we give liaisons an opportunity, if they have had a chance to meet with the department, have information, see something on the horizon that the Board of Finance should be aware of, brings it back to us. So you don't need to make decisions about it tonight, but that's what the purpose of this is. And should there be a department that you're interested in working with, please feel free to let me know. Any reports? Hearing none, we'll move on. Comments from board members. Any board members have any comments? Continuing to move, public comment. Sir, you are a public. No hands raised. So, all right, no comments from the chair. I make a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you very much.